Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Stota Siddha Sri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Stota Siddha Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Navadik Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees Hari Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hari Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hari Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text 3. Word for word first. Katayasva Mahabhaga Yata Aham Akila Atmani Krishne Niveshya Nisangam Manaha Tyakshe Kalevaram Katayasva Mahabhaga Katayasva Mahabhaga Katayasva Mahabhaga Katayasva Mahabhaga Yataham Akilatmani Yataham Akilatmani Krishna Niveshya Nisangam Krishna Niveshya Nisangam Manastyakshe Kalevaram Manastyakshe Kalevaram Katayasva Mahabhaga Yataham Akilatmani Krishna Niveshya Nisangam Manastyakshe Kalevaram Katayasva Mahabhaga Yataham Akilatmani Krishna Niveshya Nisangam Manastyakshe Kalevaram. Please repeat. Shini Sangam Manastyakshe Kalevaram Katayasva Mahabhaga Yataham Akilatmani Krishna Niveshya Nisangam Manastyakshe Kalevaram Katayasva Mahabhaga Yataham Akilatmani Krishna Niveshya Nisangam Manastyakshe Kalevaram Katayasva Mahabhaga Yataham akilatmani Krishne niveshyani sangam Manastyakshe kalevaram. Yes, Mataris. Katayasva mahabhaga Yataham akilatmani Krishne niveshyani sangam Manastyakshe kalevaram. Katayasva. Please continue speaking. Mahabhaga. O greatly fortunate one. Yata. As much as. Aham. I. Akila Atmani. Unto the Supreme Soul. Krishna. Unto Lord Sri Krishna. Niveshya. Having placed. Nisangam. Being freed from material qualities. Manaha. Mind. Tyakshe. May relinquish. Kalevaram. Body. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O greatly fortunate Shukadev Goswami, please continue narrating Srimad Bhagavatam so that I can place my mind upon the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna, and being completely freed from material qualities, thus relinquish this body. Purport. To be fully engaged in hearing the transcendental narration described in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam means to constantly associate with the Supreme Soul, Sri Krishna. And to constantly associate with the Supreme Lord Krishna means to be liberated from the qualities of matter. Lord Krishna is like the sun, and material contamination is like darkness. As the presence of the sun dissipates darkness, constant engagement in the association of the Lord Sri Krishna frees one from the contamination of the material qualities. Contamination by the material qualities is the cause of repeated birth and death, and liberation from material qualities is transcendence. Maharaj Parikshit was now a realized soul by this secret of liberation. Through the grace of Shukadev Goswami, for the latter had informed the king that the highest perfection of life is to be in remembrance of Narayan at the end of life. Maharaj Parikshit was destined to give up his body at the end of 7 days, and thus he decided to continue remembering the Lord by his association with the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus to quit his body in full consciousness of the presence of the Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Soul. The hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam performed by professional men is different from the transcendental hearing of Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit was a soul realized in the absolute truth, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The fruit of materialist is not a realized soul. He wants to derive some material benefit from his so-called hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. Undoubtedly, such an audience hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the professional men can derive some material benefit as they desire, but that does not mean that such a pretense of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for a week is as good as the hearing of Maharaj Parikshit. It is the duty of the sane to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a self-realized soul, and not be duped by professional men. One should continue such hearing till the end of one's life, so that one can actually have the transcendental association of the Lord, and thus be liberated simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Maharaj Parikshit had already given up all his connections with his kingdom and family, the most attractive features of materialism, but still he was conscious of his material body. He wanted to be free of such bondage also by the constant association of the Lord. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Pishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yataf Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripasantubi Evacha Patitanam Pavanepyo Vaishnavepyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swamini Tinamane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravari Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyvari Paschati Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vagisha Yasya Vadane Lakshmi Yasya Chavaksasi Yasyaste Hridaye Samvit Tamnasimham Maham Bhaje. Kathayasva Mahabhaga Yata Hamakilatmani Krishna Niveshya Nisangam Manastyakshe Kalevaram. O greatly fortunate Shukadev Goswami, please continue narrating Srimad Bhagavatam so that I can place my mind upon the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna, and, being completely free from material qualities, thus relinquish this body. Okay, so a little bit of context for this. This whole chapter is, King Parikshit is asking some more questions to Shukadev Goswami, and it's quite a bit of questions. So previously, as Vishnu Chitta Prabhu mentioned, there was a couple of questions and it took almost 3 chapters to answer. And then we heard just recently, Maharaj Parikshit was asking about Narada Muni, but that question in particular takes so long to answer that it kind of comes back in multiple other cantos. So now, Maharaj Parikshit has been hearing the Bhagavatam for a little bit and he's asking to please continue. And so that he can be completely freed from material qualities and at the time of death remember Krishna. So I found it interesting because this is something I was thinking about when I was reading this, that this verse in particular is kind of glorifying the Bhagavatam and talking about its potencies and how it frees us from material qualities. And I was thinking about when I first started reading the Bhagavatam, even just the second and third verses. You can maybe pull this up, 1:1:2 and 1:1:3. I'll just read real quick. I'm just going to read the translation. So, completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavat Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truths uproot the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. And then the next one. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So this whole idea of glorifying the Bhagavatam is something I found interesting from the start, and at first I didn't really understand it because, from a mundane viewpoint, say, I used to listen to music a lot, so if an album starts with the person saying, this album is amazing, it's the best thing ever, this is going to make you so happy when you listen to this, it would be really weird. But through reading more of the Bhagavatam and listening in class, I can see why it's so important to have this aspect emphasized, because it's so outside of our experience in the material world to have something this potent and to be able to experience it and to really be able to truly appreciate what it is. We have to be kind of given the very basics, this is what this is. This is the most potent thing. This is Krishna himself. And it has to be kind of re-emphasized over and over again. So I really kind of have come to like that a lot. And starting in the purport, so Prabhupada starts by saying, to be fully engaged in hearing the transcendental narration described in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam means to constantly associate with the Supreme Soul, Sri Krishna. So this kind of stood out to me, this fully engaged. And it made me think of this that we chant when we chant the 10 offenses at the very end there, api pramadaha, to be inattentive while chanting. And I was thinking too, inattentive while hearing as well. inattentive while praying, inattentive while honoring prasadam, all these things that I've noticed personally, having been here for a little over a year, coming from, my background. One thing I used to do, maybe I have a little ADHD or something like that, but I would always get kind of, not burnt out, but things would become more stale over time for me. So like I would work a job, I would really like it for, the first 6 months or so, and then it would start getting stale, and eventually I just felt like I was going through the motions kind of robotically. I used to play golf every day, and I would go out, and then after about 9-10 months, it just got pretty boring. I was playing the same course every day, and I just, even though I was something that was so nectar in the beginning, it just kind of became very stale. So similarly, that tendency is there in me, and being here, I've noticed that although in reality I can recognize that doing the same thing every day and coming to the morning program and reading and honoring prasadam, it actually gets more relishable over time. This tendency is still there, this anartha is there in my heart, that I tend to become more inattentive over time as something becomes more familiar to me, you could say. So this is kind of a good reminder and something I've been trying to think of, especially when I chant and when I read, that don't just go through the motions, be fully engaged in hearing this and chanting. And that's the only way that you can achieve this, constantly associating with the Supreme Soul, Sri Krishna. If you're committing that offense of inattentiveness, you're never going to actually make any progress. And I can't remember exactly where this was. I think it might have been at the camp that maybe Tapa Punja Prabhu was saying this in his lecture on the 10 offenses, that if you commit this one offense, this inattentiveness, you're basically going to commit all the other ones as well. It's unavoidable. So you must at least start with that and then, work on the other ones. But if you can't start from the baseline, the foundation of attention on what you're doing, then all is lost, basically. So let's see. So the next line, and to constantly associate with the Supreme Lord Krishna means to be liberated from the qualities of matter. So this Cheto Darpana Marjanam, we chant it every morning. By associating with the name of Krishna, by hearing, it cleanses the heart of all contamination. There's also, I just deleted my whole notes.
You'll find it in recent video.
Huh?
You'll find it in recent video.
Okay. Do you know how to do that, Chandan? Can you do it? Yeah. So to constantly associate with the Supreme Lord means to be liberated from the qualities of matter. So this, you can feel this practically as you chant, getting liberated from these qualities of matter, this mode of ignorance, mode of passion. So I deleted all the text, and then the actual note got deleted when I exited it. But as you're chanting, you can feel practically, even if it's on a small level. For me, I've gone from maybe a 10 out of 10 to 9.9 out of 10 in terms of this, but you can feel that your material desires are starting to slightly reduce, at least. Whereas before this, I was grossly engaging in sinful activities. At least now I'm not doing that, and through the association of devotees, able to restrain myself from doing all these things, even though the desire may still be there. So before, I could not have even imagined doing this, but now, thanks to the mercy of the spiritual master and the devotees and Krishna, I'm able to kind of be practicing this. There's this verse 2:4:15. If you could pull that up. Let me see. In relation to this. Right, so this is what we were memorizing, I guess it was earlier this year, in the prayers of Shukadev Goswami in the second canto. Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat ikshanam, yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat arhanam, lokasya sadyo vidunoti kalmasham, tasmai subhadra shavase namo namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. So, again, this is kind of back to that first point, that this glorifying of the Bhagavatam, glorifying of this activity of Shravanam, and he's glorifying all aspects of devotional service in there, but we're particularly focused on this Shravanam, that hearing just about the activities of Krishna, his devotees, in terms of the creation and his pastimes, this cleanses us of all sinful effects, and it's extremely potent. It's the most potent thing that there is. So this is something we can really hammer and remember every single day, and continue to relish more and more as time goes on, that we can never truly actually appreciate how powerful it is. So we can just try to appreciate it a little bit more than we did the day before. So Prabhupada continues on in this purport with talking about this point of that Lord Krishna is like the sun, and material contamination is like darkness. As the presence of the sun dissipates darkness, constant engagement in the association of the Lord Sri Krishna frees one from the contamination of the material qualities. So this Lord Krishna is like the sun, and material contamination is like darkness. This comes so many times in the Shastra. I was actually just reading this 3:26:4. You don't have to keep pulling everything up if you can if you want, but I'm just going to read off the purport real quick. It's the second paragraph of the purport. And Prabhupada says, in another place in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto, 7th chapter, it is stated that Vyasadeva, by his spiritual vision, saw the Supreme Lord and the material energy standing behind him. This indicates that material energy cannot cover the Lord, just as darkness cannot cover the sun. Darkness can cover a jurisdiction which is very insignificant in comparison to that of the sun. Darkness can cover a small cave, but not the open sky. Similarly, the covering capacity of the material energy is limited and cannot act on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is therefore called Vibhu. So I found this interesting in this cave analogy, and just this, it can actually only cover a very small portion. And we learn through the Bhagavatam that this material existence is actually only 25% of the full creation. And it kind of made me think of our shadow. So if you're out in the sun and you see your shadow, it's a very small portion of everything, but we're so focused on that, being in Maya, that we don't see this. There's light all around, and that what's causing that shadow to fall. So let's see. There's another verse, 1:3:43, that also compares Kali to darkness, the age of Kali, and I think it says the Bhagavatam is like the sun. Yeah, exactly. 1:3:43. Let me pull that up real quick. So Krishne svadhamopagate dharma jnanad bisaha kalo nastadishtamesha purana karodunoditaha. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. I actually found this because Ram posted that video. I don't know if y'all saw that. He is in Vrindavan, and he's having this devotee read. He distributed a Bhagavatam to this. It looks pretty like a young, maybe 18-year-old boy. He opened up the Bhagavatam and told him to read this verse, and that just happened to be when I was preparing for this class. So that's pretty amazing. Apparently, Guru Maharaj told him to memorize that. So, this. Yeah. There's also this analogy of clouds that I think I was reading in Bhagavatam recently. I can't remember where, but that the clouds are caused, or maybe I heard it in class. The clouds are caused by the sun, but and then they cover the sun. So similarly, Krishna is the cause of all causes, but then he creates Maya, and that covers us, and we therefore think that Maya is there, the sun's not there. Maya's there, Krishna's not there. We see the clouds, we think the sun's not there. But it's all actually Krishna's energy, or the sun's energy, acting and creating these things. So it's all by design. Another point I was thinking about when I was meditating on this is that this whole material creation has been designed so perfectly for us to think that we're separate from Krishna and be able to think that we can enjoy separately from him. And it's so much complexity, so much, these bodies are so complex by themselves, and then we have the modes of material nature, and we have, just everything's acting perfectly so that we can live in this world and feel like we're enjoying. And it's not that Krishna had to go through trouble to do that, because he's, omnipotent, he can do whatever he wants, and it doesn't take him any effort to make this, but just the fact that this had to all be designed because of us, because we had that desire. This whole machine had to be built, basically, to carry out our desires. So it feels like when devotees sometimes like take my clothes out of the wash and hang them up or something, and I feel like really guilty, like, dang, like they just did some service for me, like I feel really bad, like now I have to like do something for them. Similarly, Krishna has done all of this just for us because we wanted to turn away from him. It's inconceivable how compassionate he is, that he would do all this even though we're forsaking him, we're the ones that are betraying him, so to speak. So the love that he's exhibiting for us is inconceivable. And similarly, because you can clearly see what he's done for us, it makes us want to do something for him. My thought is that, well, if someone hanging on my clothes, that's one thing, but creating this whole existence for me to be able to act out on my perverted material desires, that's just on such a high level that what can we possibly do to pay him back? What can we possibly do to thank him for how much compassion he shows? That he doesn't force us to stay and just love him no matter what, because that's not love. He gives us the opportunity to do whatever we want, and even though our desires are so wrong, he still facilitates that just because he loves us. And it's really kind of mind-blowing. Let's see. There's also this in Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 22:31. I think this is maybe one of the sources of this whole sun analogy. 22:31. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakara, Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Mayara Adikara. Krishna is compared to sunshine, and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the external energy, will immediately vanish. Just like this whole idea of where there is light, there cannot be darkness. Where there's darkness, there cannot be light. So it's very simple. You just take to this process of Krishna consciousness, and Maya doesn't run away, it doesn't go away, but at least if you stick to this process, Maya can't trap you anymore, can't bring you back to the material world. Another analogy I was thinking of, maybe it's not so good, but in terms of Krishna creating this universe for us, that because one person acts up, so many new complexities have to be added. So just you take example of, say, like 9/11, that the terrorists hijacked a plane and did this. So now every time you go to the airport, there's this whole extra step that wasn't there before, that you have to go through TSA, and they're looking for the whatever weapons. So just one person's discrepancy or sinful activity created so much trouble for so many other people, that just like our forgetting of Krishna and wanting to be enjoyers, created all this complexity of this world that we have to, Krishna had to create it. So then I'm just going to continue on the purport. Let's see. Contamination by the material qualities is the cause of repeated birth and death, and liberation from material qualities is transcendence. So, again, so I was kind of contemplating on how this liberation from material qualities is transcendence. That how do we actually feel that? Like we can read that and say, okay, well, I need to get liberated from material qualities, but how do we do it, and how do we feel it? Well, it's very obviously prescribed that we hear, we chant, we remember Krishna. These things are the most important aspects of devotional service that the Bhagavatam talks about. But how we can actually feel that is, when we're, like I said, we're feeling a little bit of reduction in our material desires. And this is kind of our measure for how much progress we're making. So as we continue on, we're going to feel more attraction towards performing devotional service and more repulsion or unattraction for fulfilling our material desires. And we'll cultivate intelligence to where we can see that the chasing after these material desires is only going to lead to misery. We can remember in the past when we've done such things and what it led to. And we can also just learn from the example of others. We can learn from the Bhagavatam. They can teach us, how this leads to misery. Let's see. Maharaj Parikshit was now a realized soul by this secret of liberation through the grace of Shukadeva Goswami. So this word secret is reminding me of Rajavidya Rajakuhyam. This is the king of education. It's the most secret of all secrets. And this doesn't mean that we are hiding this knowledge from anybody. You see us go out on the streets every day, all the book distributors go, and we're traveling around the country, going to everybody, trying to give them the full Bhagavatam set, giving them books to take home, and we want them to have all of this knowledge completely as we have it. We don't want to hide any aspect of it. We want them to read the whole thing and take up devotional service. So it's not that we're hiding it from anybody. There's so many kind of pseudo-spiritual people or traditions that will come and try to say that, well, you can't learn this mantra or you can't do this because it's too high for you and you have to be born into it or whatever. We're not like that at all. We want everybody to have the holy name. We go out on the streets and chant every single day, go down to college campuses, and we're just trying to distribute this as profusely as possible. So it's not that it's a secret in terms of we're hiding it. It's secret in terms of it's not that most people won't take it up is the thing. And most people are so engrossed in their material life that the thought of following the four regular principles or even just reading a book seems so arduous to them and not practical. They can't understand the bliss they were experiencing from this. They can't even fathom what it would be like. They just see that we're restraining from certain things that they find some sort of sense gratification in, and they think that's happiness. So therefore they think that we're just some crazy people and they don't want anything to do with us a lot of the time. So this secret is it's only the very sincere people that are actually asking questions in life, and not only do they ask the questions, but when they get the proper answers, they don't reject it. There's so many people, I was talking to an old friend of mine the other day, and we kind of found actually we found devotees and we found the Bhagavad Gita together. This was 7 years ago, and we didn't really read the Bhagavad Gita so much because we didn't understand it when we were reading it, but we met some devotees, we started chanting, we got some japa malas from them, and I kind of felt an attraction to it, and I thought he did too. But then, we kind of learned about the different rules and regulations, and we decided, okay, well, I'm not ready to do all that. I'm not ready to give up my material life. So we kind of went back to our normal life, but I kept chanting, not every day, but I kind of, in my mind, I knew that, okay, this is something here. Meanwhile, we kind of started reading more like Mayavad, and we just became Mayavads. And he kind of got into this impersonalist meditation where he just sits there and tries to focus on nothing. I guess it's like Zen Buddhism almost, Buddhist. So he kind of got an attachment for that and an attraction for that somehow. And now when I'm talking to him, I'm saying, this has been a really amazing experience. You should try chanting. You should come visit. You should read the books, all these things. And he just flat out said, well, no, because what I'm doing, I feel more attraction for what I'm doing. When I read these Mayavad books, I feel more, I didn't know what he was saying, that he just feels it connects with him more spiritually. And that he just, he's happy with the way he is. And I told him, this whole concept of going from negative to zero is like, if you become a Mayavad, you kind of go from like, okay, like you're just a karmi, you're just enjoying the material world, and you realize philosophically that, okay, like there's no enjoyment, but you go to this kind of neutral state where there's no positive impetus to continue on. You don't have any relationships in this void. You don't have any, love in this void. There's no enjoyment to be had for you or for anybody else. And I kind of told him that, and then, that you fall back down, and that this process brings you to the positive, to +1. So, and that ultimately we're trying to get out of this cycle of birth and death. And he just was kind of like, well, yeah, maybe I can just stay here maybe I'll finish next life, maybe I'll finish this life, maybe I'll finish in 1,000,000 lives from now. It doesn't really matter to me. And he just has no urgency, no sense of understanding that this cycle of birth and death is miserable. He's pretty well situated financially and just like in his life. He's got a nice apartment, nice job. So he doesn't really have any material miseries, at least not so apparent. So he's kind of in this kind of just stupor, almost you could say, that he's not able to see, and it's really hard to cut through his illusion because he thinks he's enjoying a lot. So this secret, again, like I'm saying, it's a secret, because even someone like that who's seemingly primed to take up spiritual life, they still have so many misconceptions, and it's kind of teaching me that this Mayavad is really not impossible, but it's really one of the most difficult misconceptions to dispel, and to turn someone from a Mayavad to a devotee is very difficult. There's people that are like Christian to devotee, people that believe in God as a person coming in, and then they get some of their questions answered that Christianity wasn't able to answer. But when they're a Mayavad, it's very difficult to turn that around and uncontaminate them from that, and it may last many, many lifetimes. We don't know. So yes, this secret, and then through the grace, so Maharaj Parikshit was now a realized soul by this secret of liberation through the grace of Shukadev Goswami. So this point of, real quick, through the grace of Shukadev Goswami is Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasada Nagati Katopi, that we can't get any progress in our spiritual life and devotional practice, devotional service, unless it's through our Guru. And so Maharaj Parikshit was a surrendered soul to Shukadev Goswami, and he was submissively hearing and inquiring intelligently from him about the nature of reality, about Krishna. And so, he was able to achieve that perfection there even at the end of his life. He had a very limited time, but because he just surrendered to a bona fide spiritual master and heard from him, he was able to perfect his life. So through the grace of Shukadev Goswami, for the latter had informed the king that the highest perfection of life is to be in remembrance of Narayan at the end of life. There's so many examples of this, of course. This is verse Bhagavad Gita 8:10, if you could pull that up. This is where, this is the classic line that Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bruvor madhye pranam aveshya samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows and, by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's also Janma Karma Chamedivyam Evam Yoveti Tatvata Tyaktvadevam Punarjaman Aitimamedi Sojana, that by learning the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities, you can go to him at the end of this life, and you don't have to be stuck in this cycle of birth and death. So this is ultimately our goal in devotional service. Our goal is to serve the Guru and serve Krishna, but the ultimate perfection of life is to completely purify yourself from material desires and only think about Krishna, so that when the time of death comes, we're able to continue thinking about him. And it's talked about in the Bhagavatam that at this time of death, it's very difficult because where the body is going through so much. It's a very turbulent time, and there's a lot of suffering, a lot of time if you're dying from a disease, and so remembering Krishna can be very difficult. But one thing that can guarantee that is if we actually just become a pure devotee, and all we ever think about is Krishna, and we get to that platform, then nothing will deviate us from that. So it's very difficult, but it's very simple at the same time. It's just, that's the goal of life. There's so many examples of devotees that remembered Krishna at the time of death. Bhishma was laying on the bed of arrows, and he was able to see Krishna himself. And he was at a state, he was a yogi that was at a level where he could decide when to leave his body. So he decided that was the perfect moment, and he was waiting for that he could see Krishna when he left his body. And he recited some really beautiful prayers at that time. Then there's even someone like Ajamil, that he wasn't following properly for his whole life. He had some devotional service at the beginning of his life, and then he deviated and became kind of, I guess, he was fallen. But even just by remembering his son's name, Narayan, at the end of his life, he was saved from the falling to the worst condition of hellish life. And then there's, of course, Srila Prabhupada, that up to the moment where he left his body, he was dictating purports to the Srimad Bhagavatam. He was thinking about Krishna all the way up until the time of leaving his body, even though his body was, he was exhibiting this pastime of being very sick. And his body was would have been going through so much pain. He still was able to, because he was a completely pure devotee, he was thinking about Krishna the whole time, all the way to the end of death, or all the way to the moment of leaving his body. So that's the perfection of our life. It's not that we go and just sit in Vrindavan and chant Hare Krishna when we get a little bit older. The mood of our acharyas is that you stay and you continue practicing devotional service. You continue serving, distributing books, performing Harinam, distributing prasadam, preaching, spreading this movement all around the world. That's the order of our acharyas, and that's what we have to do for the rest of our life. So Maharaj Parikshit was destined to give up his body at the end of 7 days, and thus he decided to continue remembering the Lord by his association with the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus to quit his body in full consciousness of the presence of the Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Soul. And I kind of spoke about that a little bit already, but Maharaj Parikshit was fortunate in a way that he knew when his moment of death was coming. So he was able to prepare in this way, and he was fortunate because Shukadeva Goswami came to speak the Bhagavatam, and he was in the perfect situation. That's a very rare thing, because for most of us, we don't know when it's coming. It could come today, tomorrow, it could come in a few years. I think Guru Maharaj was saying something about this car accidents recently in a recent lecture, that nobody that gets in a car thinks, oh, today I might die in this car, generally. But it happens to so many people every single day. This Atlanta is a very dangerous place. It's 285 is, I've heard, it's like the deadliest highway in the country. So, it's something that we don't think about it. We don't think about it. We don't expect it, but it can just happen. And then, a car hits you and you could just die instantly. So it's very, very important to be constantly engaged in service, constantly thinking about Krishna, serving the Guru, and not to deviate from that at any moment, and just 90%, do devotional service, 10% do some sense gratification on the side. That's why we're living here in the temple and trying to associate with devotees full time, practice full time. It's very important to stay in that way and not do this mixed kind of, sometimes I'm a devotee, sometimes I'm a karmi, which seems to be prevalent in our society these days, at least in the West. So, next paragraph, the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam performed by professional men is different from the transcendental hearing of Maharaj Parikshit. So this is a point that's been made a few times in recent purports, and Mahotsa Prabhu was talking about this. To be honest, I'm not so knowledgeable about these professional men that recite Srimad Bhagavatam for a living. I've just heard a few examples through lectures and such, but Mahotsa Prabhu was mentioning about this Mayavad that reads Srimad Bhagavatam, and if there's not 200,000 people there to listen, he won't speak. And then I was thinking about that this morning, and I remembered how when Srila Prabhupada came to America, there was many times where he was speaking and there was nobody there. So he just had his tape recorder. So you can see the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee in that, Prabhupada is a pure devotee. He was speaking, he was listening, so at least someone was there to listen. And he recorded it because he knew that it would be important. He also emphasized to his disciples early on that please record all of these lectures. And they were kind of, I've heard that they were somewhat like indifferent or just, no, it's not so important. But later on, they saw how valuable it was that they got all those recordings in the early days and recorded everything that Prabhupada said. So this difference, that a pure devotee will sit there in an empty room and speak Bhagavatam because it's Bhagavatam and it's completely transcendental, and it'll bring them happiness, and it also purifies the atmosphere. Just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur chanted, and he said this chanting is going around the world 7 times. So we can't conceive of how potent this process is, how potent the Bhagavatam is, and it's not. There's no consideration of how many people are here listening in order to gratify our senses that so many people are adoring me and listening to me speak the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Maharaj Parikshit was a soul realized in the absolute truth, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The fruit of a materialist is not a realized soul. He wants to derive some material benefit from his so-called hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. Undoubtedly, such an audience hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the professional men can derive some material benefit as they desire. But that does not mean that such a pretense of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for a week is as good as the hearing of Maharaj Parikshit. So, again, I'm not so well versed in these professional Bhagavatam reciters and professional kirtaniers and such, but I've seen a few examples here and there. Bhakti Vikas Maharaj says a few times, I've heard in a lecture that he's talking about in Bengal how there's these kirtaniers and they'll come on stage and they have an hour slot that they have to perform, and they'll act with all this, this bhav, and they acting like they're experiencing the highest mellows of devotional ecstasy, the crying and whatever. And then as soon as their hour is up, they'll be anxiously looking to see where the next performer is because they're supposed to come take their spot. And why are they doing that? Because they want to go so they can smoke their, I guess it's a cigarette, right? Brady. Yeah, so they want to go smoke their cigarette because it's been an hour. So as soon as they leave the stage, the tears are gone and there's no more ecstasy. It's just, they're just normal. And Vishnu Chittaprabhu was mentioning something about that, this kind of like this sahaja kind of thing, that you're kind he was talking about a devotee that was showing his ecstasy and recording himself, but he was not so ecstatic that he couldn't hold the phone for some reason, even though he was crying and going crazy. So there's a lot of people will put on this show of being, on this top platform, but we see that, with Srila Prabhupada and the acharyas, that they didn't openly display this. They didn't want to. There's multiple reasons, but one reason is that they didn't want to make others imitate and then, become sahajas. And they, if they're always exhibiting ecstatic symptoms and just lost in this, becoming a madman, they're not able to preach so effectively. So there's multiple reasons for it, but this display of ecstatic symptoms isn't so encouraged. It's not encouraged at all in our sampradaya. So when you see that, these kirtaniers, and then we see, here in the West, there's some devotees that they'll do these kirtan melas, and they'll have demands that you fly me out to this place, you pay me this much, you keep me in this hotel, and then I'll do it for you. And then they go to a temple, and I've seen videos. I mean, they sing just karmi songs. They don't even sing kirtan or anything. They're just playing reggae or something like that, and in the temple room in front of the deities, in front of Srila Prabhupada, and it's really horrifying to watch. So this happens in the name of devotional service, and they call themselves devotees, but they should not be followed, they should not be trusted, they should not be given any attention. Next paragraph, it says, "It is the duty of the sane to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a self-realized soul and not be duped by professional men. One should continue such hearing till the end of one's life, so that one can actually have the transcendental association of the Lord and thus be liberated simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam." So it is the duty of the sane to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So, it's not just, it's preferable for the sane. It's good if the sane people hear Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the duty. Duty is something we have to do, and we're required to do it. And not just to hear it, but hear it from a self-realized soul and not be duped by professional men. So it requires discrimination, and it requires intelligence. It requires rejecting that which is not bona fide and is not being given from a self-realized soul. And how do we do that? Well, Srila Prabhupada has really saved us a lot of trouble, because he came to America, he gave us this Srimad Bhagavatam, and he's a completely pure devotee, so we can read what he says and just follow it exactly, and we're going to be just fine. Because everything he says is completely in line with this disciplic succession. And when you think about this potency, it's coming from Krishna himself. So the words of the spiritual master are as good as the words of Krishna himself. Sakshat Daritvena Samasta Shastra Uktastata Bhavyate Visadbi. The spiritual master is to be seen as good as Krishna himself. So by hearing these words from the self-realized soul, in this case, we're hearing from Srila Prabhupada, we're going to be, completely set, and we're not going to run into all these pitfalls that so many other spiritualists and pseudo-spiritualists nowadays do, these New Age spiritualists and Mayavads, that they just kind of mix and match whatever they want, and whatever feels good to them, they're going to do. Just like my friend I was mentioning, it's not that he has any philosophical basis to his so-called spiritual practice. It's just, he literally says it's because it feels better. So it's not about feeling better. This example is given so many times that jaundice, the cure of jaundice is to take sugar, and it tastes bitter. That doesn't mean that the sugar is not going to cure you of this jaundice. It just means that, you're diseased and you need this medicine, and then eventually it will start tasting sweet again. Similarly, we might have to take some bitter medicine, that we don't want to take. But we have this disease, this material disease that we have to get over. And the only medicine is Shravanam Kirtanam. So at first it may seem like bitter and unpalatable. That was his impression of it, that he doesn't feel anything when he chants and this and that. But it's working, and it's simply by trusting the authorities, Srila Prabhupada, all the acharyas, Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita, and he's speaking. These realized spiritual masters, when they're speaking, we should realize what they're speaking is from experience. It's not some mental speculation, and they're actually experiencing this topmost level, and they're associating with Krishna himself. So we should listen to what they say, follow their instructions, and we can start to experience it for ourselves, even on a very small level. And that will give us faith to continue on in this process. So the other thing that I was thinking with this line is, it's the duty of the saint to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. There are many out there that are sane, and they are looking for the truth, and it's our duty to go give them this Bhagavatam. That's what, our mission is in life, is distribute as many of these Bhagavatams as we possibly can. Even if we're not directly doing it like myself, my goal is to see as many people come into this process of devotional service, become brahmacharis, and take them through the bhakta program, train them up, take them from just like I was, just a karmi, not knowing what they're doing in life, to practicing devotional service full time, following the 4 regular principles, chanting 16 rounds, distributing books, and they can go and distribute books and distribute Bhagavatam, just like Bhakti Jacob, he came in, and a few months in he was distributing Bhagavatams. So it's really amazing to see. And I was talking to Damodar Prabhu the other day, and he said this is really funny. He was saying that back when he was running the Bhakta program in New York, he was joking with Praghosh Prabhu, who was like big book distributor, and some other the big Sankirtan devotees there. And he said, I distribute more than all of you combined. And they were like, oh yeah, how's that? Tell me how that makes sense. And he said, well, I'm training all these new bhaktas, and then they go out and distribute more than all of you combined. So, and even Guru Maharaj was saying something about that recently, that, there are the big book distributors, and, obviously they're doing amazing things, but all the small book distributors combined add up to more than them. So, if we can just bring in more people, we're going to up our book distribution to a whole nother level. And, that's the goal, that's the mission. So we're going to spread this Bhagavatam all over the country and then all over the world. And like Mahotsa Prabhu said, there was this Mataji that, I think it might have been you, that some Mataji bought the Bhagavatam, and then she said, I'm taking Krishna home. And so everybody's going to take Krishna home, have Krishna in their home, and they're not going to be able to ignore it. It's going to be sitting there on their bookshelf, and they're going to be like, oh my God, I spent all this money on this. What is this? They're going to look into it and start, getting a lot of benefit, even if it's their grandson or their great-grandson that does it, not them. So one should continue such hearing till the end of one's life, so that one can actually have the transcendental association of the Lord, and thus be liberated simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And again, Maharaj Parikshit's a perfect example of this, that he's at the end of his life, and he's all the way up until the moment of death, he's hearing the Bhagavatam. This isn't something that we just do for a few years in the brahmacharya ashram, and then, from then on, we kind of just here and there, we might listen to Bhagavatam or read it. But it's every single day we should hear Bhagavatam, we should read Bhagavatam, we should learn shlokas, we should, speak about Bhagavatam with devotees. We should hear lectures. So this is a continuous process, and it's eternal. It's not just for this life. But like Mahotsa Prabhu says, once your relationship with the Bhagavatam is established, it can't be unestablished. It's an eternal relationship that keeps on going life after life. So if the Bhagavatam found you in this life, it's going to find you in the next one, even if you don't completely perfect your life in this time around. So actually, my friend that I was mentioning, he has a little bit of hope because he did buy a Bhagavatam. So somehow that Mayavad will be eradicated, and he'll become a devotee. I actually joked with him because he's a manager at his corporate job he does, and he manages this remote team, and he's saying, I want to take care of these guys and make sure they're good and like help them out. And so I was like, well, so you're saying that you want to serve them, like you want to help them out? And he's like, yeah, I want to serve them. So I was like, okay, so then you're saying basically you are a devotee. You just don't know. I was like, you agree that service is going to make you happy. Doing service will make you happy. And he's like, yeah, I agree. I was like, okay, so you're a devotee. You just don't know it yet. So just take some time. And then the last paragraph here, Maharaj Parikshit has already given up all his connections with his kingdom and family, the most attractive features of materialism, but still he was conscious of his material body. He wanted to be free of such bondage also by the constant association of the Lord. So even when we give up all these things, kingdom, family, these are the most attractive features. Like for me, just coming in and had some, just like giving up, not giving up my family, but just like giving up their association so much, and all my mundane friendships. And I was building a business before I came here, and I thought, I had a lot of hope for it, and I was like, yeah, this is going really well. I was raising money for it, and it was going really well. And I was kind of looking forward to that. And then when I came here, I thought, well, I'll do this for some time, and I'll go back to that. But ultimately, I saw that, it has to be given up. It's actually not that important in the grand scheme of things. And, the idea with it was to help the world. And actually it wouldn't have, when I just learned a little bit of the basics of this philosophy, I saw that it won't help the world. It's like saving the clothes of a drowning man. So I was convinced of the bona fide philosophy here, and saw that this is actually the way to help people in the world. It was definitely the best decision I could have made. So still he was conscious of his material body. So his bodily consciousness is something that hangs on even after we may give up some gross materialism. This idea that we are the body still remains. So the only way to be purified of that is to constantly associate with the Lord. And how do we constantly associate with the Lord? As I said, we hear the transcendental narration described in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'll end my class there. If there's any questions and comments, please feel free to ask.
So, well, a small thing. You see, what defines a person being a devotee or not devotee is not necessarily the inclination or acceptance that service, causes. I mean, service is a higher principle. It gives happiness, and I want to serve others. But it's more accepting the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, specifically in the form and as Vishnu, Narayana, Krishna, like that. Or at least if one accepts even God, then some extent, they're some kind of devotee, but they accept supremacy, meaning they're not saying that they're one. They accept that Krishna or God is supreme, and I am subordinate, like that. And therefore, even neophyte devotees who might not have the inclination to do service so much, but they've accepted that Krishna is supreme, they're not really practicing much business, but they've accepted, yes, Krishna is supreme, that's obvious. They're actually recognized as devotees. And they're put on a higher platform than Mayavadis who say that we're one, although if you look at behavior or even education, like Shastric knowledge, etc., the Mayavadis may be way better in terms of like even following things like celibacy and things like that. But still, this person is higher because he has recognized the supremacy. He has accepted Krishna as supreme. He has accepted the position of Krishna, which actually requires some level of humility, and more humility than anything else. And so that's what really defines whether a person's a devotee or not. Not if they're having some inclination to service. That many people have actually. Actually, most Mayavadis have that, especially the Neo ones. Neo Mayavadis, they all like to do like social service and this and that, like serve, and the Vivekananda came up with the philosophy that, was Vivekananda? Manav Seva, Madhav Seva. Vivekananda came up with that? Yeah, this Manav Seva, Madhav Seva was coined by him? Yeah. So, okay, that was one thing. I had a question. See, many people realize that they realize that, okay, I'm happy right now, but maybe that's temporary. But still they think, well, I'm happy right now anyways. And they don't feel that sense of urgency. What causes that? What causes that even though they know something is going to end, they still think it's okay? Although, they probably don't really think it's okay, but they somehow seem fine with it.
Yeah, that's something I always wondered too. It's like, my mom's a good example. She, I was always growing up asking, like, what about like death? Like, what's the point of all this? Like, we're gonna die. Like, why are we striving for all these things? And she's like, well, just don't think about that. Just, it's okay. Yeah, so we're gonna die. So we'll go to heaven and be with our family. And I was like, so how do you know that? What are they gonna look like? After y'all were telling me that, are they gonna be in their, is your mom gonna be when she's old or when she's a child when you get to heaven? And they don't have any answers. And similarly, my friend that I was talking about, he's like that too. I'm happy now, so like, what's the problem? And I mean, if I had to guess, it comes down to like just the power of Maya and this illusion that, that Krishna's designed it so that we can think we're happy, and it works really well when we want to be an illusion. Even though all logic cuts through that, and you just think about it logically, and when you get to this platform of feeling that my friend was on, it's all about my feelings and how I feel about it, and it's so easy to just be completely illusioned that, well, I feel happy, so therefore I'm happy. And for him, it's kind of personal for him, but a few years ago, I guess it was 6 years ago, his brother died from an overdose on drugs. And so he was like, obviously, he was very close to his brother, and so he was very depressed, devastated for a long time. And it took him years and years to pick himself up from that. And he found solace in this impersonalist meditation while he was in that state. And so now, from my perspective, it almost seems like it's kind of like a drug that he's addicted to, where he numbs himself from the reality of the death is coming for him too, with just this impersonalist merge and erase yourself, whatever. And so he convinced himself that it was okay because of that. And anyways, yeah.
I was wondering if there's any verse that specifically speaks about that. Is there a verse in it?
Thank you. Regarding this, the same question was asked in a different way when Yudhishthira Maharaj approached that he wanted to quench his thirst, and he came to the one pond or somewhere, and Yamaraj in the form of Yaksha, he comes and asks various questions. That's called Yaksha Prashna, in which one of the question was, what is the most surprising thing in this material world? So it goes like that. What is the cause of why people, even though they know that they see in front of them, they are having problems. You see, so many people realize that they are having problems. They know they are having Bhagavatam, even devotees, everybody. But what is the point? Ahanyani bhutani gachanti yamalayam. Sheshastavaram. This is the most surprising thing.
Yeah.
But what is the cause? Because it is the attachment for their. Some people are attached to their Shudra mentality. It's Maharaj said in one lecture that it's a Shudra mentality, and they are like that, they are attached. Like for example, Indra was in the form of a pig. And what is it? Brahma came and told, you are Indra, you come. I'm going to take you. No, 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 my piggy wife is there, my piglets are there, I want to see them, they are nice. And then he had to arrange in such a way that he had to slaughter him to take him to Swarga, I mean to say. So one who is in this material world, that's what is the question that Arjuna asked. Atakena prayukta. It is something like that. Why I am forced to commit sin, even though I don't want it? Why there is? What is the cause? Kamesha krodesha rajoguna samudbhava. Mahashuno mahapapma vidyena miyavairinam. So the only cause is Kama and Kamarjuna. What is it? Kamanuja. That's Kama and Kamanuja, that is the only, there is no other. See, if one doesn't want to serve Krishna, the only reason is lusty towards this material world. His anger towards this material world. That's all. There is no other. There is why one is unable to chant, sleeping. This why is because he is attached to his body. What you can see today morning I was more or less like sleepy stage of chanting. Why? Because it's like that. We are attached to, and we are happy that we are attached to our this one. We don't want to come out of that. Even though we hear for so many times every day during Bhagavatam, what to speak of those people who don't hear at all. So we are hearing every day, but still we are we can't come out of that because of our body. So many things come off our mind, but not Krishna. But not Krishna's holy name. That when does it arise? That is what a devotee prays. When he says that when Krishna sun will arise in my heart, so that he dissipates the darkness of my ignorance. So it's not so easy. It's not so easy that that the next shloka is all about. Shrunvata ashraddhaya nityam grinatasya swacheshtitam kalena atidirgena bhagavan vishate hridi. It's not so easy that it can happen. And the next shloka is that, what is that? The muddy waters take away all the by the rainfall, all the muddy waters gets driven away. So like hearing Bhagavatam, all the muddy, everything. So it's slowly, the pixels, you see, the color is not just one color, it is filled with so many pixels. Pixels means small spots. So when we are chanting, reading the whole one spot, it will fall away and one day we will realize. So that is the cause I see. That other than lust and anger, there is no other cause. Why there is we can't, as Prabhupada says, actually there is no Maya. In Aghasura's pastime, Prabhupada writes, there is no Maya. The existence of Maya is not there at all. The Maya thing, nothing doesn't exist. For a pure devotee, it doesn't exist at all. He is there, and he is you are saying that pure devotees, they leave the body. We have so many examples. Every pure devotee is an example that there is no death for them. Prabhupada said they sleep and then they wake up in the spiritual world. That's all. And for them there is no difference between spiritual world and material world. For that matter, everything. Vishwam Purnam Sukhayate. For us, there is material world, there is spiritual world. Oh, we are here. But for a spiritual pure devotee, even his Prabhupada is here, sitting, giving class, or Prabhupada is somewhere in the moment. For them, everything is the same for them. So that's what I am thinking. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You can hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So one thing in this regard, the verse is Gita Raja Baya Shroda Manmaya Mam Upashitaha Baho Jnana Tapasa Puja Mad Bhava Magataha. And then Prabhupada, in this entire purport, basically is speaking about the life of your friend. I think your friend Matthew, right? That's the guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he already has to Bhagavatam says that. Huh?
Yeah.
But You know, in this purport, if you read this purport, Prabhupada is exactly speaking about this. The bottom line truth is people are so fried out with material existence that they hate being person.
Yeah.
And because they hate being a person, they just try to take shelter of something impersonal. You know? And then Prabhupada writes here, there's the last class of men take shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their effective hallucinations are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. You see? So like, this is what they do. Like, you're saying, your friend, he took to the impersonal liberation as some kind of a drug. But this is what it is. Prabhupada specifically speaking. I think Vishnuta Prabhu, if you read the purport to Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha, that's the answer to your question. Prabhupada exactly answers that. And I was also thinking, in this regard, there was another point I wanted to make. Yeah, that they also like to have just a little piece in the material world to just help them go along with the material life. That's why they take all this kind of impersonal meditation and all that. Anyway, so much more things, but it's nice to see everyone.
Yeah. Go keep.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. But yeah, there's we sang it maybe some months ago. Anyways, it feels like it was like yesterday. But there's that song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur when he talks about like these different like philosophies. And I know Mitch Prabhu likes that song, but I remember we were saying it one day and we read the translation. And I'm paraphrasing, but like one of the like lines stuck out to me the most. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying that like, these different philosophies, like they bait one and trick you to like, into like liberation and things like that. And since we're like talking about your Mayavad friend, and then that kind of like made me reflect like in my own life, because like at a point in my life, like I was like, when I was, I don't know, probably like 13 or 14 or something, like I became like really like attracted like Buddhism. But it was just like, it was like that bait, like thinking like, oh, like if I take to this and I can become like, like liberated and like above like duality and all these things. Yeah. But it's just like Maya's trick, like on the conditioned soul. It's like, we're like suffering so much, and then we see like there's like a way to get out of it, and it seems like spiritual and everything, and like that, and then then you like go for it, but it's just like another trick. It just baits you. You actually don't attain liberation or anything. You just like suffer in a different way, but not becoming Krishna conscious.
There's this little part of a purport that is exactly like that I was reading recently. Without the surrendering process, one cannot achieve liberation. The Bhagavatam says, those who are simply puffed up, thinking themselves liberated by some non-devotional process, are not polished or clear in intelligence, for they have not yet surrendered unto you. In spite of executing all kinds of austerities and penances, or even arriving at the brink of spiritual realization and Brahman realization, they think that they are in the effulgence of Brahman, but actually, because they have no transcendental activities, they fall down to material activities. So yeah. Well, it's
one verse I can remember, you were asking about the verse, what is the cause? Maybe Purusha Prakriti Stohi Punji, but Nishan Gunda Karanam Guna Sangas. So this is the only generation. That is also one of the verse.
Yeah, I think Matari had a question.
I'm just wondering, what was the verse Mahotsa mentioned, and then what verse did you just say? Which
did I just say?
Yeah.
This is a screenshot. I need to look it up. Let me see.
Also mentioning, what is that? 411? 411. After Jana, 256. 256. Oh wait, sorry. No, with 410. 410. After Jana, which is 490. Chapter 410.
Okay.
And then the one I was on is 3:25:41. Bhagavatam. All right.
That's it.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki.